Design, comparisons, display, camera, software, speakers, 90 FPS gaming, and finally benchmarks. This is my unboxing and extremely detailed review of the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, pricing at the top right hand corner. And the first thing that we see in the box is indeed a transparent soft shell case and some headphones, Type-C headphones that is, with mimicking pretty much old Apple AirPods. And we also have a Type-A to Type-C cord in the box. Matching that is indeed the massive 66 watt Huawei supercharged charging block, which is indeed included in the box, which is absolutely epic. Here is the color that I have in white. And it looks absolutely stunning. You also get it in a black, mystic silver, green, and yellow. You can only get mystic silver and black overseas. We have a bit of a fingerprint magnet over here, though not so much on this glossy white variant. Luckily, we have that transparent case in the box. It doesn't look too bad. It has a nice little Huawei logo on the right-hand side, and it has a nice little rubbery mesh inside. We have aluminum frame and Gorilla Glass 6 on the front and back. We have an IP68 water and dust resistance up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. A massive 4,400 mAh battery, 66 watt fast charging and 50 watt fast wireless charging. We have a red accent power button, a non-split volume rocker, and IR blast at the top, which is nifty to see. Nice and clean on the left hand side, and we do indeed have a dual SIM slot over here with an option to upgrade your storage using Huawei's Nano Tech. We also have a USB Type-C at the bottom with 3.1 transfer speeds, and we do indeed have dual stereo speakers, though the top one seems to come out the top grill as well as the earpiece. We do have a bit of a camera bump with that Oreo module at the back, though not quite as hefty as the Note 20 Ultra. It is a bit bigger than the Mi 10 Ultra and a hell of a lot bigger than the new iPhone 12, meaning that there is a tad bit of screen wobble, but not as much as you would expect since the module is centered within the phone itself. Design wise, I really like it. I think the white really pops a lot more than the Note 20 Ultra. Would have been nice to have a matte finish though. The Mate 40 Pro is quite a heavy boy, however a little bit lighter than the Mi 10 Ultra. It's definitely heavier than the iPhone 12. So the back looks absolutely phenomenal, but what about the front of this beast? Well, we get welcome to an 18.5:9 aspect ratio, 6.76 inch horizon display. It is indeed OLED with 16 million colors and a pretty strange resolution at that, with a peak brightness of around 800. Things look pretty great and bright close up, though we do have a bit of edge bleeding when looking at it from the front. The sides using that horizon display does look incredible. It is definitely 88 degrees steep compared to other devices with curved displays out there. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, though your palms don't really interfere thanks to wonderful AI software from Huawei. Up close and personal, comparing it to other devices, its color accuracy is right up there with the best of the best. I mean, you do indeed get what you're paying for. As you can see over here, that little bit of side bleed over there due to those enormous curves is definitely noticeable. And of course you have that massive pill-shaped notch at the top, though not quite as bad as what we see on recent iPhones, but definitely a lot worse than what you would see on a Samsung or Xiaomi over here with their little dot punch hole display. Hopefully we get those underneath the display pretty soon. We do have high standard and low resolutions over here with different pixels per inch. It doesn't look too bad. You're going to save a hell of a lot of battery life if you go for the low option. We also have 90 Hertz as opposed to 60 Hertz refresh. Thankfully, we do have 90 Hertz over here, unlike on the iPhone 12, which is stuck at 60. And you do notice it, you do feel it more than you can actually see it. I definitely recommend going and testing a high refresh rate panel in the store if you've yet to do so. Comparing it to the 120 Hertz panel on the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra and Mi 10 Ultra, it doesn't really make much of a difference in my opinion. I can't really feel much of a difference in everyday life, the difference between 90 and 120. I think that 90 is pretty much the sweet spot, especially with a wonderful QHD panel. We have a couple other settings that we can fiddle with when it comes to the display, such as hiding out that cutouts. We also have an option to hide the edges, which works pretty well when you go into an app like Facebook, but when you do show the edges and you rotate your display, it hides them again. Not quite sure what's going on with that. Maybe we'll get an update which will fix that. We also have a load of different icon packs that you can choose from, which are built into the phone itself. We also have dark mode, which you can schedule, and it says we can use it for third-party apps, but there aren't really many options available, and it's not very dark in the interface that you usually see, but it looks pretty good with first-party apps. And we do indeed have an always-on display with limited customization options, nothing quite like we've seen on ColorOS 11 from Oppo, though I like these moving ones, these dynamic ones. They look absolutely fantastic, and you can use this smart option over here where it allows you to tap to view, as well as to put your face in the way, and it knows that you're looking at it thanks to the sensors in the selfie camera. Of course, when it dims down, you can use the same feature, and you can even tilt your head and it knows which way to rotate the phone, which makes it really nice for watching videos when you're, say, lying on the couch or on your bed. Of course, we have 66 watt wide charging, and the animation looks absolutely great. Stay tuned for a charging test coming soon, and 5 watt reverse wireless charging, as well as regular 50 watt charging. We have smart charge and smart battery capacity, meaning that it will only charge up 100% just before you wake up, and smart battery capacity means that it'll only fill up a portion of the battery so that it can preserve battery over time, which is great. We have an optical fingerprint sensor underneath the OLED panel of the Huawei Mate 40 Pro, and it is definitely quicker than the Samsung and the Xiaomi over here. And we also have secure 3D Face ID, unlike the Note 20 Ultra and Mi 10 Ultra, which just have 2D using the selfie camera. We actually have a 3D TOF lens in here, and comparing it to the iPhone 12, it's pretty much neck and neck in terms of speed, but of course you can bypass the lock screen and go straight into the phone, making it a lot quicker. But that selfie cam is used for more than just unlocking your phone. We have a 13 megapixel f2.4 selfie snap. It is indeed ultra wide, and we do have a 3D TOF lens over here. Taking a snap with the 13 megapixel snapper, it looks absolutely fantastic, and that wide shot is so great. Portrait mode looks really good here, pretty much no edge detection whatsoever, and when you're taking a picture with a friend or with your wife, such as me, it does a really great job at ultra wide. And at night things don't look too bad. There is a night feature that only seems to work on 1x, not on ultra wide, but still looks pretty good. Let's check out video. You can record all the way up to 60 FPS at 4K using the selfie cam on the Mate 40 Pro, and you can even switch between the main, the wide, and the ultra wide selfie lens. Looks absolutely fantastic. And video recording using the selfie cam at night doesn't look too bad either. No night mode over here when it comes to video, but still things look pretty darn snappy. Moving on to the back camera, we have a main 50 megapixel sensor over here, f1.9 with laser autofocus. No optical image stabilization over here. That is for its bigger brother, the 40 Pro Plus. We have a periscope of 12 megapixels and an ultra wide of 20 megapixels, and that periscope can go all the way up to 5 times optical zoom. The ultra wide sensor seems to go to a strange 3:2 aspect ratio. The rest of the shots look pretty great. We have 2 times optical over here, which looks decent. 5 times still looks great. Even 10 times hybrid looks awesome. 3:2 once again with the ultra wide, but it still looks phenomenal. Going to the main, I'm sure you guys have noticed at the top right hand corner I've put 12.6 megapixels or sometimes 50.3. It is because I actually did the calculation and it is off by that little margin. So you're gaining some in certain aspects and you're losing some in other cameras. When you're taking portraits of yourself, it looks absolutely great. You can even do background and foreground blur over here with this portrait mode, and regular portrait looks great too. Taking photos indoors with night mode on looks as you would expect from a Huawei phone, though the competition really has stepped up their game, so there's not much of a difference between this and something else. My biggest problem here is with night mode. When you switch over to ultra wide or you start zooming in with the night mode feature on, it seems to stick all the photos on the main sensor. So it uses like artificial intelligence to zoom out. That's why we're getting a 4:3 aspect ratio with ultra wide, and then when you zoom in, it sticks to the main and everything is digital. So when you start to zoom in, such as over here, we're going to go to 5 times optical, which looks way better than 5 times at night because it seems like it's coming across as digital, and 10 times hybrid becomes 10 times digital using night mode. Same thing with 30 times over here. It looks horrendous when you actually turn on night mode, and it's already bad as is. We have a moonshot over here with night mode on. Doesn't look great, but if you don't use night mode at all, it comes up with a really awesome moon AI. Talking about video, we get 1080p at 60 FPS. Of course, no optical image stabilization, though we do have laser autofocus over here, and it does a darn great job. If anything, 4K 60 is nice, smooth, and very clear. 1080p 60 FPS ultra wide is great, as well as 4K 60 FPS ultra wide. It's good to see that here, but no 8K video. It's pretty strange though. Ultra wide does some warping effect on the edges. We also have 1080p 30 FPS, which is the max for background blur. It does a pretty great job. Sometimes it struggles to find its subject, but I really think that this is an awesome feature that I hope that they improve going forward. We also have something called steady shot, which is actually for video stabilization, and turning it on, you lose a lot more quality than you gain in stabilization. I actually prefer the stabilization method used when the steady shot feature is indeed off. You can also record at night. 1080p 60 FPS main looks pretty great. I think 4K looks slightly better, a little bit more detailed over here. Recording at night 1080p 60 fps ultra wide looks pretty great, and 4K 60 fps ultra wide, once again even more detailed here. 4K dropped to 40 frames per second at night when I started to zoom in, though it still looked really awesome here in Shanghai with this light show. And now I've sped through this little clip over here, but recording at 4K 60 fps, and this was pitch black. Other than the lights, you couldn't really see much, and the Huawei Mate 40 Pro did a fantastic job. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. We do have EMUI 11, but it is skinned over Android 10, no Android 11. Maybe we'll get a Harmony OS update. And when it comes to Google Play services, they don't work right now, but we might get an update from Google Fire, the guys at develop companies over there, that will sport us some Google apps on the new Huawei EMUI 11. But as of right now, we can use a handful of Google apps, but we can't sign in, and you have to use an outdated Google services package that you'll have to download and install separately. Of course, we can use our other non-Google certified apps such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and they work as you would expect. You can sign in at all. The software experience feels nice and fluid as you would expect from a Huawei device, though the differences between EMUI 11 and EMUI 10 don't really seem that significant. It still has nice little bonuses such as animation effects when you close up an app, and you can switch between apps at the bottom, much like you see in an iPhone, but if you can get it to work, that is. We also have floating apps over here which you can pull in from the right side of the screen, and we can turn them into multitasking apps as well. You can also add any app that you'd like to multitask with, and you can flick them between each other, which is great. And when you do pull up your recents tab, it actually keeps them together, so if you close them, it'll kill both of the apps, which is awesome. And now let's compare its dual stereo speakers to the beefy Note 20 Ultra. As for gaming, we do have something called Game Space over here. It doesn't really show much of an over-screen overlay. Actually, nothing at all. No FPS counter or CPU heat management. We're going to be using Bench Pro over here to test out the FPS. However, when we start jumping into our first game, which is indeed PUBG Mobile, no 90 FPS option on the Mate 40 Pro here, and we only get extreme FPS when we're running the lowest graphics preset, so we're hitting 40 FPS. Of course, 40 FPS is capped when you have it set to Ultra FPS mode within the game itself. If you go to Extreme on low, you get a static 60, which is pretty great. I just wish that we could max out the resolution over here as well. When it comes to Bullet Force, though, we get a solid 90 at max graphics settings, which is epic. Dead Trigger 2 is another game that has no frames per second cap. However, we can't even go up to ultra graphic settings, and we're capped at 60, which really sucks. But at least Real Racing 3, which has no frames per second cap, is hitting a solid 90 FPS, which is great because many phones that can run the other games at 90 can't run Real Racing at 90. It's really showing the true strength of the Kirin 9000 5G chipset run on 5nm tech. Talking about that chip, we're going to go through a benchmark over here, starting with AnTuTu with the max refresh rate as well as the max resolution of the phone. And we're going to rock AnTuTu version 8.4.7 on high performance mode and game space respectively. Here are the battery drain and degrees in Celsius, as well as CPU degrees in Celsius at the start. We'll compare that at the end of the test, which will happen right now. And as for the results, we have a drain of 5%, dropping by 24.4 milliamp hours per minute, compared to the average Snapdragon 865 powered smartphone. That's only dropping by 20.5, so it doesn't look good so far. When it comes to battery degrees in Celsius, it has actually dropped by 1 degree in Celsius. Very strange there, but it added a whopping 8 degrees in Celsius to the CPU. Final score here, 666,786. We have a hell of a lot more, pretty much 100,000 more points than the Apple A14 Bionic chip. And for our second benchmark, we're going to be rocking Geekbench 5.2.5 using the same settings that we did earlier. The Huawei Mate 40 Pro got a single core CPU score of over 1,000 and a multi-core score of just shy of 3,500, which is pretty much in between the A14 Bionic and the Snapdragon Snapdragon 865 Plus. When it comes to OpenCL API GPU test rendering, we got a score of over 8,000 points, which is well more than double of what the latest Qualcomm has to offer. Vulkan API GPU rendering, we can compare it now with the Metal API used on the A14 Bionic chip, and that scored quite a bit high with over 9,000 points. The Huawei Mate 40 Pro looks absolutely stunning at the back. This is the whitest I've ever seen a smartphone, and its cameras are way more than capable. Pretty much the best of the best out there. Flip it around, you get welcome to a gorgeous horizon display with nice beefy curves, as well as an optical fingerprint sensor and 3D face unlock. We get that wonderful high resolution and 90 Hz refresh rate panel on here, which is great. It's nice and buttery smooth when moving around on day-to-day tasks, and you can even hit 90 FPS in many games over here. It does an absolutely superb job when it comes to the software department for what it is, running still on Android 10. I'm really hoping that we get an Android 11 update pretty soon though, because it feels like we're rocking old tech. But the lack of Google services is a hard pill to swallow, and there are many flagships out there that do come packed with Google services within them that offer pretty similar specs these days. Though if the Mate 40 Pro did indeed include Google Apps, it would probably be my favorite phone of all time.